Mr. Chair, thank you again. And I had the honor of being in a committee hearing yesterday that I was a ranking member of, a subcommittee hearing where your daughter was one of the witnesses. So
thank you. Thank you.
Glad to see her. She did a great job. Please give her my best and tell her thank you for her testimony. And again, I'm glad we're having this hearing today, Mr. Chair, because this topic is incredibly timely and it impacts both sides of the aisle. Before I begin my remarks, I want to point out that I wish we would be together in the hearing room. Even Dr. Fauci's admitted we are out of the pandemic phase, yet here we are again on Zoom, calling each other from across the same complex of buildings. It's time for this nonsense to stop. Digging into today's topic, I think we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture when it comes to truth, free speech, and what each of us is allowed to think or even say. When we see information that we believe is untrue, we need to speak the truth even louder. Unfortunately, many on the left would rather police speech, claiming this sort of nanny state activity is for our constituents' protection. This type of censorship poses a serious threat to our republic. Silencing those whose opinions you do not agree with is a propaganda and control tactic used by repressive regimes like the Chinese Communist Party, Cuba, and Russia, who believe that freedom of expression is a privilege, not a right. Our former colleague and my former mentee, Mr. Carlos Curbelo, is here today to talk about this firsthand. Unfortunately, specifically by those on the left who are quick to label Unfortunately, specifically by those on the left who are quick to label untrue any speech they find inconvenient or simply disagree with. The question then becomes, who is the arbiter of truth? Who decides what is considered truth or misinformation? Many so-called fact checkers often need fact checking themselves. I think in the 2018 election cycle, Mr. Curbelo and I could point to one that the Washington Post supposed fact checkers did in regards to our attempts to fix a broken healthcare system. Personally, I don't think anyone is qualified to be the ultimate authority on truth except God himself. And it's certainly not the White House. It's not the federal government, not private industry, or frankly, even the media. That's why our First Amendment prevents the government from interfering with each American's freedom of speech. Each of us has the right to share information, debate ideas freely, and form our own opinions without government interference, and then take those opinions and our friends to the polls and elect leaders who share their views and values. This is the bedrock of our constitutional republic. Yet the Biden administration has admitted they are flagging problematic posts that they deem misinformation in the hope of censoring social media. Just this week, we saw Elon Musk make a deal to buy Twitter. This news has caused some on the left to spiral into public meltdowns. And why is that? Apparently because Mr. Musk is a vocal proponent of free speech. MSNBC host Ari Melber said that by owning Twitter, you could, quote, you could secretly ban one party's candidate, secretly turn down the reach of their stuff, and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it until after the election. I mean, imagine that. I could name a few folks on the right who have been warning about and experienced this exact type of censorship for years. So we've seen before how the left's efforts to define the truth and silence any dissent backfire. Look at sanctioned Democrat lawyer Mark Elias, who illegally funded the discredited Steele dossier while working as Hillary Clinton's top lawyer. In March of last year, the Fifth Circuit recognized his aversion to the truth and sanctioned him for being less than truthful with the court. And the Durham investigation continues to show us that the idea of Russian collusion was entirely made up. But heaven forbid anyone try to voice disagreement with the progressive gospel. Or the all-out censoring 2 years ago of any news stories relating to Hunter Biden's laptop. The left, in their infinite wisdom, decided that this was a story no one should read because of its inconvenient timing, so it was labeled misinformation. Yet 2 years later, even the New York Times had to backtrack and confirm that the original story was true.
Yeah.
The real reason today's hearing was called is because the outgoing majority must have seen the data, including from Equus Labs, which is testifying for them today, which shows that Democrats are losing Latino voters. It's becoming increasingly clear that rather than try and win policy debates on the merits, the left would suppress the speech of their political opponents, labeling it misinformation in a desperate attempt to keep power. The point is this: unlike some on the left, I believe the American people are smart enough to form their own opinions and identify truth from fiction. They don't need a government truth commission restricting access to information or, frankly, telling them what they can say. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yield back.